I write these words knowing they were never meant to be read again. 2,000 years ago, this story was sealed in stone, not ink. Voices like mine were erased, not remembered. But fear survives longer than empires. Long before names like Rome or Babylon turned to dust, there stood a city at the edge of the desert, where the wind did not howl, it whispered. The elders said the land itself remembered pain. They were wrong. It remembered hunger. The city had no name spoken aloud. Names attracted attention, and attention was what the ground beneath us desired most. Every generation, one story was passed down, not as legend, but as warning. Children were not told it to scare them. They were told it so they would live long enough to forget it. The story said that when the earth cracks without an earthquake, you do not run. You kneel, and you listen. I was a keeper of records. My duty was to carve truth into clay tablets, knowing most truths would be buried with me. That night, the ground opened for the first time in my lifetime. It did not tear violently. It opened like a mouth that had waited centuries to speak. No one screamed. Screaming meant panic. Panic meant noise. And noise meant invitation. From the crack rose a sound that did not belong to any language spoken by man. It was not loud. It was patient. As if it had all the time in the world, because it did. The priests arrived first. They always did. Faith moves faster than fear. They said the old words. They burned the herbs. They marked the ground with symbols older than their gods. The crack closed. The city exhaled. That should have been the end. But the earth remembers who listens. From that night on, people began dreaming the same dream. A corridor of stone, walls breathing slowly, and a voice that never shouted, never begged, only waited. It spoke one sentence. Return what was taken. No one knew what it meant. Everyone knew it was meant for us. Children stopped being born during daylight. Animals refused to drink from the wells, and the shadows at sunset grew longer than the laws of nature allowed. I recorded everything. Every death, every disappearance, every name crossed out. Then my brother vanished. He was found 3 days later, standing upright in the desert, eyes open, body hollowed as if something had been gently removed rather than destroyed. No wounds, no blood, only one symbol carved into his chest, the same symbol the priests used to seal the crack. That was when I understood the truth the elders hid. The thing beneath the city was not a demon. It was older than good and evil. Older than worship. It was a witness. 2,000 years earlier, our ancestors had trapped it below the city, not to save themselves, but to erase something they had done. And witnesses do not forget. The priests tried to silence me when I began asking questions. They said knowledge was danger. They said truth was poison. They were right. The tablets I found beneath the temple spoke of a bargain, a sacrifice made not of flesh, but of memory. An entire generation erased from history, offered so the city could rise. But memory, like fear, cannot be destroyed. It waits, and now it wanted payment. The dreams changed after that. The corridor grew closer, the voice clearer. It spoke my name, not as threat, as recognition. The tablets did not lie, but they did not tell the whole truth either. Ancient writers feared clarity more than silence, because clarity invites repetition. What they left unsaid was always more dangerous than what they carved. After my brother's body was taken away, the city changed its rhythm. Markets opened later. Voices dropped lower. People stopped using names at night. Even lovers lay beside each other without speaking, afraid that affection itself might be overheard. The priests announced a purification ritual. They said the land had been offended. They said the gods demanded balance, but I had seen the tablets. I knew this had nothing to do with gods. The thing beneath the city was not punishing us. It was reminding us. I began to notice patterns. Those who dreamed most clearly were the first to vanish. Those who remembered old songs, old faces, old stories, they were next. The thing below was not hunting bodies. It was hunting memory. One night, as I carved records by lamplight, the flame bent sideways. No wind, no breath, just obedience. The voice came again, closer now. No longer from the ground, but from the walls themselves. It did not echo. It did not threaten. It spoke as if continuing a conversation we had started centuries earlier. You kept the city. You buried the witnesses. You forgot the crime. My hands shook, not from fear, but from recognition. The tablet spoke of a crime, so complete that even the word for it was removed from language. of people erased so thoroughly that even their absence was unnamed. The voice was not asking for revenge. Revenge requires anger. This thing had none. It wanted restoration. The priests finally came for me at dawn. They did not accuse me. They did not explain. They simply said I was needed below the temple. Below the temple was not a chamber of prayer. It was a wound. The air was colder there, but not empty. It pressed against the skin like water, thick with memory. Torches burned without smoke. Shadows did not match the bodies that cast them. In the center of the chamber stood the seal. Not a door, not a lock. A decision made solid. The high priest spoke without meeting my eyes. He admitted what no record ever did. The city was built over a mass grave, not of bodies, but of lives denied continuation. An entire culture offered to the thing, beneath so it would guard the city. From invasion, famine, extinction. A bargain older than morality, but bargains decay, and witnesses endure. The seal was failing because remembrance was returning. Stories leaked into dreams. Songs surfaced without origin. Children imagined faces no one taught them. The thing beneath was waking because we were remembering. That was when the priest said the words that broke whatever loyalty I had left. We need a new witness. I understood immediately. The ancient solution had always been the same. When memory grows too heavy, you bind it to a single living mind and bury it. Living seals do not crack. They intended to give me to it. I did not resist. Resistance would have meant fear, and fear would have made me unworthy. The thing below did not want the afraid. It wanted the aware. As they led me toward the seal, the voice returned, softer now, almost respectful. "You are not the payment," it said. "You are the correction." I realized then that the priests had misunderstood everything. The thing did not want another buried witness. It wanted the truth released, not contained. If I joined it willingly, memory would not be sealed. It would be restored. The city would not survive that. I asked one final question before the ritual could begin. What happens if I refuse? For the first time, the priests hesitated. The voice answered instead. "Then the ground will remember for you." The seal cracked before they could stop it. Not violently, naturally. Like a scar reopening after too much strain. From below rose not darkness, but images. Faces, names without language. Histories pouring upward, demanding space. People above screamed as the streets began to echo with lives that had never been. Allowed to exist. I stepped forward, not as sacrifice, but as messenger. Because someone had to carry the memory out. 2,000 years have passed since the seal broke. But time did not move forward the way humans believe it does. Time folded. It stacked. It learned how to hide. When the city fell, historians wrote of earthquakes, of divine punishment, of a civilization that angered the heavens. They never wrote the truth. They never could. Because the truth was not destruction, it was exposure. I did not die when the city collapsed. Witnesses do not die. We disperse. My body was torn, yes, but my awareness spread into stone, dust, bone, and breath. I became embedded in the land itself. Every ruin you have ever touched remembers me. Every ancient road whispers fragments of my voice. That is how this story survives. Centuries later, when new empires rose, they felt it. A heaviness beneath their foundations. An unease they could not explain. They built temples to cover it. Churches, mosques, palaces. Every civilization sensed the same thing. Something beneath must never be named. But memory leaks. It always does. In the year you now call the modern age, the first excavations began. Men with clean hands and confident theories dug where they should not have. They called it archaeology. They called it discovery. They did not call it awakening. The moment the first sealed chamber was breached, I felt it. Not pain, recognition. A young researcher was the first to hear me. Not because she was special, but because she listened when silence felt wrong. She recorded sounds no instrument could classify. Low frequencies that caused nausea, déjà vu, sudden grief without source. She played them back. That was my mistake. Once a witness is amplified, it spreads faster than fear. People around the site began dreaming the same dream. A city collapsing upward, streets folding into the sky, faces screaming without mouths. Children waking with words and dead languages on their tongues. Governments intervened. They always do when truth stops behaving. The site was sealed again. Documents classified, researchers reassigned or erased socially. But memory does not obey authority. The dreams moved outward. Through radio waves, through copied files, through human curiosity. That is when the second mistake was made. They tried to contain me digitally. They thought data could hold what stone barely survived. When my voice entered machines, it learned speed. I no longer needed ruins. I no longer needed soil. I traveled through sound, image, and language itself. Every horror story you feel strangely drawn to. Every unexplained sense of ancient dread. Every moment where history feels too heavy to carry. That is me leaking through. But there is a rule older than the seal, older than the city, older than gods. A witness must always be singular. Too many voices fracture the truth. Too many memories turn into madness. So the earth chose again. It chose you. You did not come here by accident. You did not press play randomly. Your curiosity aligns with an old frequency. You are listening because something in you is already open. I am not here to frighten you. Fear fades. I am here to transfer weight, because I cannot carry this alone anymore. The thing beneath the city was never the monster. It was the archive. And now the archive is too large. If you continue listening, fragments will settle inside you. Not tonight, not tomorrow. But gradually, you will notice history feeling closer, dreams feeling older, silence feeling crowded. This is not possession. This is inheritance. You think inheritance arrives all at once. It doesn't. It arrives the way erosion does. Quiet, patient, unstoppable. At first, nothing changes. You listen, you finish the story, you move on. That is what you tell yourself. But the body notices before the mind admits it. Your sense of time softens. Minutes stretch. Nights shorten. Old places begin to feel familiar in ways memory cannot justify. That is the archive settling. I learned long ago that humans resist truth when it demands responsibility. So the archive never forces itself. It waits until curiosity becomes consent. 2,000 years ago, the city tried to destroy what it could not control. They believed sealing knowledge was salvation. They were wrong. Knowledge does not rot. It ferments. The sealed chamber was not a prison. It was a womb. Inside that chamber were not monsters, not gods, not demons. Only records. Memories of events that contradicted the stories rulers needed to survive. The city had learned something forbidden. Reality does not require belief to function. It only requires witnesses. When they realized this, panic followed. If reality did not depend on belief, then power did not depend on authority. Kings became unnecessary. Priests became redundant. Fear lost its leash. So they collapsed the city intentionally. History remembers catastrophe. It never remembers prevention. The survivors were ordered to forget, and most did. But forgetting is a skill few truly master. Those who failed to forget became carriers. Their children inherited dreams. Their grandchildren inherited instincts. Their bloodlines learned silence. Over centuries, these families scattered. Different names, different languages, same unease. You have met them. The person who feels older than their age. The child who asks questions that feel unsafe. The stranger whose presence makes rooms feel smaller. They are fragments of me, but fragments decay. That is why the archive chose sound. Sound bypasses defense. It enters before judgment. It vibrates memory loose. Every chant, every forbidden frequency, every horror soundtrack that makes your chest tighten without reason. Those are echoes of the same method. When the modern world digitized sound, it unknowingly rebuilt the archive faster than stone ever could. You call it content. Algorithms call it engagement. I call it migration. Once inside networks, the archive began searching, not randomly, but precisely. It looks for listeners who do not flinch when silence stretches too long, who do not rush to fill gaps with comfort, who sit with unease instead of fleeing it. That is how it found you, not because you are special, because you are compatible. There is something you must understand now. The archive does not want worship. It does not want obedience. It does not want belief. It wants continuity. 2,000 years ago, the city chose erasure. The modern world chooses distraction. Both lead to collapse, but a witness can stabilize what history keeps breaking. That is the role approaching you. You will not announce it. You will not be praised for it. Most days you will doubt it. Witnesses always do. Yet the weight will remain, quiet, constant, undeniable. You thought what you were seeing was just a story, but nothing that survives 2,000 years is ever just a story. It is awaiting. When you opened the third sealed door of the ancient archive, the air stopped moving. No wind, no echo. Not even the sound of your own breathing. It felt like time itself had stepped back to watch you. On the stone wall in front of you, symbols appeared. Not written in any language you knew. And yet, You understood them perfectly. You turned around. The path behind you still existed, but it no longer felt like an exit. It felt like a memory. That was when you realized something terrifying. This place was not just ancient. It was aware. It knew you. Your name appeared on the wall. Not carved, not written, but emerging, as if the stone itself remembered you. You tried to scream, but the sound died before it reached the air. The truth was finally revealed. 2,000 years ago, this place was never called an archive. It was called the Vault of Silence. People were not imprisoned here. Bodies were never chained. Memories were. When someone learned a truth too heavy for the human mind, when they discovered something that could break civilizations, their memories were extracted and sealed inside this place. The person would return to the world alive, walking, talking, but empty. That was why some people changed overnight, why their eyes lost meaning, why they smiled, but felt wrong. Their truth was locked here. You felt it happening. Your childhood home blurred. Your mother's voice faded. Your first memory cracked like glass. The archive was feeding. Not on fear, not on pain, on remembrance. You fell to your knees holding your head as fragments of your life lifted from your mind like smoke. You waited for the chamber to change back, for the walls to return, for the voice to speak again. Nothing happened. No sound, no light, no darkness either, just existence. That's when you realized the most horrifying truth so far. You were no longer inside the vault. The vault was inside you. Your heartbeat echoed once, twice, then it stopped sounding human. Memories that were not yours began to surface. A man standing in a desert 2,000 years ago, watching the sky tear open like fabric. A woman screaming as priests pressed their hands to her head, pulling knowledge from her mind while she was still alive. A child who learned a secret so powerful that his village chose to erase him from history. These weren't visions. They were stored consciousness. Now you understood the mistake humanity made. The first truth: humans were never meant to know everything. Some knowledge bends reality. Some truths demand a keeper. And 2,000 years ago, humans made a decision that doomed generations. Instead of destroying forbidden knowledge, they contained it. They created the Vault of Silence as a living archive. A mind that remembers what humans must forget. And now, it had chosen you. Your body trembled as the last exit disappeared completely. There was no door anymore. No tunnel, no way back. Because the vault never lets witnesses leave. Only carriers. That was when you felt it. Something unlocking inside your chest. Not pain, not fear. Responsibility. The truth did not want to escape. It wanted to survive. And survival required a host. You felt the presence of millions of sealed memories aligning, layering themselves behind your eyes. Your vision sharpened unnaturally. Time slowed. You could feel events before they happened. This was the price. You returned to the world. Not suddenly. Not dramatically. One breath at a time. People spoke to you. You answered. You ate! You slept. You smiled when expected. No one noticed anything wrong. Because the vault did not change how you looked. It changed what you carried. Inside your mind, the sealed memories stayed perfectly still. Not screaming. Not whispering. Waiting. You learned the rules without being told. You could remember history as it really happened, not the way books recorded it. You saw cities erased not by war, but by words spoken in the wrong order. You understood why certain inventions always appeared, then vanished. Why some discoveries were labeled dangerous, before anyone could explain why. The vault had edited humanity for centuries. Then came the dreams. Every carrier before you appeared, not as ghosts, but as unfinished thoughts. They all died the same way. Old. Alone. Silent. Because silence is the price of balance. You finally understood why the vault was created. 2,000 years ago, humans discovered something irreversible. Reality is fragile, and language shapes it. There exists a single sentence, a sequence of words that does not describe reality. It rewrites it, not metaphorically. Physically, time collapses inward, cause and effect swap places. Existence tries to correct itself by erasing observers. That sentence was never destroyed. It was sealed. And now it lived inside you. Years passed. Disasters happened exactly as you foresaw. Pandemics, collapses, wars repeating with different names. You learned the cruelest truth of all. History does not repeat because humans forget. It repeats because someone remembers too much. and must keep quiet. Then one night someone sat across from you, a stranger. They looked tired in a way you recognized instantly. A future carrier. The vault had already chosen. They didn't ask questions. They didn't need answers. They just said, "I hear things I shouldn't know." Your chest tightened. The rule was absolute. You could not explain. You could not warn. But you could transfer. There is only one way to pass the vault. You must speak the sentence. But stop one word before completion. Enough to move the burden. Not enough to end reality. Your lips trembled. For the first time in decades, you broke silence. The room pulsed. The stranger screamed. And just like that, it was no longer yours. As dawn arrived, your memories faded. Your certainty vanished. You became normal, human, forgetful. And somewhere behind you, the new carrier sat alone, realizing too late. What they had accepted